It's a well-known phenomenon that investors experience a loss more keenly than an equivalent gain. Behavioural psychologists like Paul Richards call it loss aversion.
If we think about when we make an investment, then there's always the potential for loss and the potential for profit. Now, when we make a profit, we know that feels good. And equally, when we lose money, we know that that hurts. But here's an interesting question. Imagine if I asked you to look at your investment portfolio. You haven't looked at it for a while. You open it up and on one day you see it's made a loss of 20%. And hypothetically on another day you look at it and you see that it's made a gain. Now, the loss in dollar terms or in pounds and pence is exactly the same. But the reality is for most of us that it doesn't actually feel the same. The loss hurts more than the gain.
Early humans developed loss aversion as an evolutionary trait to help them prioritize survival. Losing, say, food or shelter posed a greater threat to survival than gaining additional resources did to enhance it. But it can be an unhelpful instinct for investors today.
One of the things that we see is that sometimes we can miss out on really good investments because we don't think the return is good enough for a reward. A second thing that we can often see is that when we've actually lost some money on an investment or maybe our house, then we're tempted to hold on to it until it returns to profit. We just don't like that feeling of loss. But it can also be flipped the other way. Perhaps we've made a profit on an investment. We can sometimes feel the need to actually lock in that profit and potentially missing out on a lot of upside. So these things can be a useful guide for us, but they can sometimes drag us in the wrong direction as well.
Thankfully, there are things you can do to prevent your fear of losses having a negative impact on your investment decision-making. The first, says Paul Richards, is to seek good professional advice.
Well, there's a number of things that you could do. But I think there's 4 things that any person can do. And the first one, and probably the most important, is to get good professional advice. I think we all recognize that it's easier to solve other people's problems than our own. We're one step away from it emotionally. And a good advisor can do that. And these days, advisors are acutely aware of some of the behavioral challenges and can help you get through them. The second thing that I think any investor should do is just recognize the nature of investing. Things will go up, things will go down, but we should always keep our eyes on the long term. The other thing that I would suggest that people do is just put away their phones. One of the things that we can do these days is just look at our portfolio every minute, every hour of every day. The more we look at our portfolios, the more likely that we are to see loss. And the last and most important thing is that nature has built us to naturally focus on losses. So when we're looking at new opportunities, we should always consciously make sure that we look at the upside.
Investments, particularly equities, are bound to go up and down in value. But in the long run, investors who stay patient and diversified are usually well rewarded.